Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed, today inshallah we will have the chapter on attainment, or al-wujud, I'm sorry. And in fiqh we will talk about al-khulla, inshallah ta'ala. So station number 96, or chapter station number 96 in Manaazil As-Saa'irīn, a book that was written by al-Imam al-Harawi, Stations of the Travelers. Imam al-Harawi died in the year 481 after Hijrah. So the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala said here, attainment or al-wujud, station number 96. Allah Azza wa Jal, أطلق الله عز وجل في القرآن اسم الوجود صريحا في مواضع فقال يجد الله غفورا رحيما لوجد الله توابا رحيما ووجد الله عنده. Allah the Almighty explicitly spoke of the name of wujud in the Quran. He said, will find Allah forgiving and merciful, and that's in Surah An-Nisa. They would have found Allah accepting of repentance and merciful. That's also in Surah An-Nisa. But finds Allah before him. حتى إذا جاءه لم يجده شيئا وجد الله عنده فوفاه حسابه. It says in Surah An-Nur, until he comes to it, the mirage, until he comes to it, he doesn't find it to be anything, but finds Allah. So the Shaykh is basically, as usual, mentioning a verse. Here he mentioned 3 different verses of the Quran to say that the name wujud was actually mentioned in the Quran. It simply here in these ayat, it simply talks about finding Allah. It simply talks about finding Allah, or finding Allah to have such and such quality. Rahma, maghfirah, tawbah, etc. To find Allah to have these qualities, or to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Shaykh then says, al-wujud ismun lil-dhafar bihaqiqat al-shay' wa huwa ismun li-thalathati ma'an. Wujud is a name for the attainment of the reality of a matter. It refers to 3 meanings. Wujud is a name for the attainment of the reality of a matter, and it refers to 3 meanings. If you remember, wujud comes from the same root as wajd, which we discussed in station 66. Station 66 was the station on wajd, and we translated wajd as ecstasy because we said that this is usually how it is translated. But we did say that although wajd is about the jolt, the spiritual jolt that you find, the cause of a spiritual rapture that the person finds as a consequence to their dedication, devotion, ibadah, their worship, and their dhikr, and so on. We said that it is not limited to ecstasy, but it could actually be grief, and it depends on the qualities that will dominate the most prominent attributes of God, the attributes of majesty, the attributes of beauty. So if the attributes of beauty are dominant in your feeling, then you find basically that joy and that ecstasy. But if the attributes of majesty are more dominant, then you will have ishfaq and khawf and huzn. So it will be different set of feelings, concern and fear and grief and so on. But al-wujud comes from the same root, which is wajada, to find. Yet al-wujud is a higher station, obviously, as Imam al-Harawi puts it here at station number 96 verses 66, and it is a higher station according also to the majority of the masters. According to the majority of the masters, wujud is a higher station than wajd. In fact, I feel that wajdi belongs more to al-ahwal, to the states, because it is a hal, it is a state that you find. It is about finding those spiritual imports versus al-wujud, which is attainment, actualization. At the end of the road, it's the actualization of faith. It's to really find God. It is not finding the spiritual imports that result from your devotion and worship. It is to really find God. And Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah also in Manaazil As-Saa'irīn, he gives a very telling parable of wujud. He says that when you look for a treasure, someone talaba, which means sought or pursued a treasure. So qasada ilayhi, so he basically sought the path to it, or took the path to it. That's a seeker taking the path to the treasure. And then wasala ilayhi would be to, because wujud is not simply to reach it. Wasala means to reach it, to arrive at it. And that is al-wusul and al-wasl. Al-wasl is connection, to be connected to God. Al-wusul is to reach God, and al-wasl is to be connected to God. So that is wusul and wasl. They are still not as high as wujud. He says if you want the treasure, and then you seek the treasure, and then you arrive, tasil, and then only if you're able to possess it and take it home is when you have attained it. That is wujud. Wujud is only when you're able to possess it and take it home. So that is the parable that he's given when you are looking for a treasure, or taqsid ila matlubik. Matlub is that which is pursued, your pursuit, that which is pursued. And they say man talaba wajad, he who is sincere in his pursuit will find his goal. So الوجود اسم للظفر بحقيقة الشيء. Wujud is a name for the attainment of the reality of a matter, and it refers to three meanings. أولها وجود علم لدني يقطع علوم الشواهد في صحة مكاشفة الحق إياك. The first is the attainment of the ladunni knowledge. من لدنا علم, knowledge from us. The knowledge that comes to us from God. The knowledge that is bestowed on the heart, not the tongue or the intellect. The knowledge that is beneficial is the knowledge that comes to us directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we said so many times, the whole mark of this knowledge being good, being from Allah, not from the shaitan, is it complements the knowledge of Sharia. It does not replace it. It is not a substitute. It is not an alternative knowledge. It is complementary, meaning it will allow you to discover more about, the wisdom of the Sharia, the fawaid, or the benefits, or the jewels and pearls that you find in the Quran and the Sunnah. It will open up your heart to finding more of those benefits. And certainly, people are not the same. A person could read a hadith and extract one or two benefits, and another one can extract 200 from the same hadith. Certainly this is about the capacity, the potency, the potential that they have, and that is to a great extent from Allah. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ, and fear Allah, and Allah will teach you. So أولها وجود علم اللدني. The first is the attainment of the ladunni knowledge. يقطع علوم الشواهد, that concludes the demonstrative knowledge. في صحة مكاشفة الحق إياك, by the authentic divine disclosure to you. Concludes the demonstrative knowledge. Demonstrative knowledge, it is the difference between experiential faith and faith by persuasion. Demonstrative knowledge. Philosophers always are into demonstrative knowledge, demonstrative proofs. proofs that you can demonstrate, proofs that you can demonstrate or that you could speak of. And the Shaykh says here that these proofs and this type of knowledge is an inferior type of knowledge. The knowledge that can be demonstrated, the knowledge of the intellect that can be demonstrated, the knowledge of al-Barahin, the indicants, the signs, the proofs, etc. All of this knowledge is the inferior knowledge because true certainty will be attained, will be acquired when you have divine disclosures. And that is to a great extent true. That is the difference between seeing honey and tasting honey. It is to a great extent true. Some people could be very well versed in their knowledge of God and how to prove the existence of God and the greatness of God and so on and so forth. Or they can talk about the divine attributes, for instance, and they can, as one of the Mashaykh said, about the different debaters over the divine attributes, like when they disagree over Nuzul, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah descending to the lower heaven. They debate over this the whole day, and then they all go to sleep and they don't actually rise to pray, whether they believe that His Rahmah descends or He descends. All of them go to sleep at the end, and no one is waiting for Him or His Rahmah. So that is the difference between Mukashafat al-Haq and the knowledge of Shawahid, demonstrative knowledge. So these are two different things. The knowledge, the knowledge of al-Mukashafa, the authentic divine disclosure, will be knowledge that will truly move you, that will truly transform you. This is the transformative knowledge. Then the Shaykh talks about the second type of wujud. The first was wujud al-ilm al-laduni, the attainment of the laduni knowledge, and the second is wujud al-haq, wujud aynin munqati'an an masagh al-ishara. والثاني وجود الحق وجود عين منقطعا عن مساغ الإشارة. The second is the real attainment of the real, a type of attainment that is independent of the signposts, a type of attainment that is independent of the signposts. And as we said before, because when you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you reach your destination, you don't need the signposts anymore to find your destination. So that is the second type of attainment, the real attainment of the real, which is al-Haq, which is Allah, a type of attainment that is independent of the signposts. والثالث وجود مقام اضمحلال رسم الوجود فيه بالاستغراق في الأولية. The third is the attainment of the station of the fading of the attainment by submersion into the antecedents. What does Shaykh want to say here? The third is the attainment of the station of the fading of the attainment. It is to attain the fading of the attainment. Because eventually this is the third phase. What does he usually talk about in the third phase? He talks about fana, he talks about self-annihilation. Now if you have dissolved, completely dissolved, and reached that level of complete self-annihilation, will there be an attainer and an attained? There is no attainer and attained anymore. They call this ithniniya, which is duality. Certainly the Shaykh is one of the people of uprightness, Ahl al-Istiqama. He's not a unionist in the sense of ontological union. He does not, mean that in the extramental reality there is no creation and creator anymore, and there is no line of demarcation or line of separation between the Creator and the creation. Certainly, some people could interpret what he said to mean that, and certainly many people did. And Shaykh rahimahullah is considered by the Hululiyin to be one of them, and he is not one of them. Based on everything we know about his seerah and based on everything we know about his legacy, he is certainly not one of them. But what the Shaykh says here could actually, that's the problem of brevity, and that's the problem of symbolism, is that your words could be interpreted in so many different directions. So when he's speaking here about losing your wujud, he means to say losing your self. So once you have lost yourself, you lose your wujud, your attainment of the divine. You lose it into your submersion into his antecedents. So he wants you to again travel back in time until there were no creatures and there was the Creator, God, the eternal. That is his awaliyya. His awaliyya is his antecedents. You travel back and you capture that moment and you hold on to it. And you let it subsume you. Let your capturing of that moment of his awaliyya, his antecedents, when he was and nothing else was of these creatures or these creations. So you capture this, you hold on to it, and if you hold on to it, will there be any ithniniya here, where there be a seeker and a sought, an attainer and attained, and there is none. And that is the point that he wants you to, that is where he wants you to be in that third phase, the complete self-annihilation. And as we said, it is very, very possible, based on everything we know about the Shaykh and the legacy of the Shaykh, and how athari he was in his aqeedah, and how hanbali he was in his fiqh, and his worship, and his ibadah, and his amal, and all of his mihan, also his trials that he's been subject to during his time. We are certain that what the Shaykh means is all in the realm of mental conceptions, not in the realm of ontological realities. The Shaykh does not want to say ontologically there is no creator and creation. The Shaykh does not want to say that that we subsist in Allah in the sense of hulul or divine indwelling or union or any of that. Absolutely not. The Shaykh is talking still about mental conceptions, and it is very possible to understand what he said to mean that. It is when you lose sense of yourself to the extent that you don't exist anymore in your perception, in your mental conception, not in the extra-mental outside ontological reality. But as we said before, the benefit of learning this and the benefit of learning the different stations, although sometimes they overlap and sometimes they are similar, is that we, the mashayikh, the masters of this path, shine light on different regions in our nufus, different regions in our hearts, and we want to follow them when they shine that light. Certainly, we're holding on to the Quran and the Sunnah, we're holding on to the example or role model of the first community. We're being careful, we're watching our steps. But we want to follow them when they shine the light on these different regions of our hearts and our nufus, so that we can discover ourselves and discover our flaws and do deep cleaning of our hearts and our nufus, because there are hidden crevices that you will not be able to reach unless you listen to the masters of the path who have walked the walk before, and they can point to those hidden areas in our nafs only then we will be able to do the deep cleaning of our hearts. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.